All right, guys, special guest here, state champion, winning head coach at Milton High School, Coach Steve Dembowski. Coach, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Talk about this clinic, though, Coach.
We've had a clinic since 1960. It's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and I think we've been here with the Patriots for probably 15 years, would be my guess. I don't know exactly, but Dave Driscoll and Gary Doherty lead this for the Coaches Association and work with Fred Kirsch of the New England Patriots to put it together, and it's about between 700 and 800 coaches that registered this year for the clinic, and it's been a huge success so far.
Obviously, 700 coaches, from all around New England. What do you see at stuff like this?
There's a lot of presentations. They typically last about an hour. Coaches will typically hang around and answer questions for people individually afterwards. There's also a ton of networking with other coaches, with vendors that come and support the clinic and are offering products anywhere from gear to fundraising to on the field equipment, things like that, uniforms, really everything that will help the high school coach in their program at some point. It's March and guys get to talk ball, and I think that's a big thing too.
I was impressed with it, Coach. There was so many different people, so many different speakers. You want to talk about just some of the speakers you've been able to get? We just watched Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, Bill's awesome. He loves empty. I've seen him talk. I've spent time with him when he was with the Patriots a long time ago because he's an Andover guy, and we're about the same age that we actually played at the same time in high school, and he reminded me that we were on an all-star team together in 1987, and I was like, oh, all right, yeah, cool. It's awesome, and it's great to have him at Boston College. I think he'll bring that New England toughness, and like he said, he wants to put the wall up and try to get some of those top guys to stay here, and it's exciting to see him get going, and he's got Jonathan DiBiase as his quarterback coach, so there's a mass tie right there already. So I saw Anthony Facillo present today on some spread run stuff with some RPOs, he did a fantastic job, a guy that I coached against when he was a player, and now he's a head coach at Belmont Hill. He's doing a great job. I think there was a lot of turnover in the New England college coaching this year, with obviously BC changing, Harvard changing, Holy Cross, Merrimack. So some of the schools that we typically get a lot of college presenters from, there was staff kind of change. We couldn't get the schedule out as quick as possible, but I still think the New England coaches responded with the good attendance this year.
Absolutely, and I think it's only going to get bigger, without a doubt. And then one thing that obviously was here, it was something about the playoffs. Was that information about that, Coach?
Our association has been obviously driving the football playoffs or the recommendations for modifications for years, and starting really in 2013 when we went to the statewide that we put forward, and then with the modifications the MIAA came out with 3 years ago with the state tournament plan, there are still some things that aren't good for football. We're the only sport in the MIAA that plays its tournament basically in season, so it causes 77% of the schools to have to take a bye or play a consolation game in November, which really hasn't been good for football. What we really want to do here is give every kid who plays high school football a full season through Thanksgiving, and then we want to have 8 teams in a playoff. That's what the statistics and the data have told us. Previous surveys to the coaches have said no consolation games, please. But the 8 divisions that we have, if we cap the division at 40 teams and we took 8, you're taking the top 20% of the teams. In the current tournament, even though it's better than what it was before, we still have 33% of the teams who qualify don't have a winning record. They're 4-4, they're 3-5. And if we didn't have the 3-win rule as a minimum qualification, we would have teams that are 1-7 still making the tournament.
God.
And if we didn't have Thanksgiving, we could obviously have 16 teams and play a 4-week tournament and play a 10-game season. We do have Thanksgiving, and it's a big part of at least mass football, particularly in the East where the majority of the schools are, and still in Central too, for that matter. And what we want to do is kind of get it so we want to protect the integrity of the regular season so that every kid, no matter whether they're 0-10, 10-0, can play 10 or 11 games. Again, we're trying to work with different committees, but the big thing that came out of this week's MIAA football meeting was that we're going to put together a survey, and we're going to send that survey to all the mass high school football coaches, all the mass principals, and all the athletic directors. Because really what's happened is the information doesn't get out to everybody. I don't think people understand that, all right, Milton won a state championship, Xaverian won a state championship, like King Philip. They're going to be in whatever the format is, King Philip, St. John's Prep, Xaverian. The people who have the ability to have the great programs, the Duxburys, they're going to be there every year. But this isn't about so much the tournament as it's about every other school. What's happened in this state in the last dozen years is we've lost about 25 programs. That's not good for football. Co-op, it's the last alternative to co-op with another school. Okay, great. But public schools like Georgetown couldn't field a team team this year. They've been around for a long time. It just keeps adding up, and the number keeps dropping. Right now we're at 274. The majority of teams in this state are smaller schools. I think it's like 66% of the schools, 800 kids or less. We need to balance the divisions, have a complete regular season so every kid gets a fair experience. I mean, do you imagine right now we're in the hockey playoffs? If you played 15 games, you went in the tournament, you lost in week 1, and then you had to play 3 or 4 consolation games. The format under the statewide tournament really was like everything fair and equal. So really the big change, and the reason why this hasn't gone through yet, is that the tournament would be a 2-week, and we'd go an extra week into December. Then says, all right, what do you do with the winter season? Everyone in New England knows that when the winter season ends and the spring sports take the field, I think on 18th or the 19th, whatever the spring sports start in March, most of them are inside. And COVID taught us that we can move calendars and be successful. That's an option. Starting the winter a week later and starting the spring a week later and letting them still have their full seasons and their turns. As football coaches, we don't want to take away from anybody else because we want our kids playing those sports. But what we're trying to do is really just give football a fair postseason tournament and a fair regular season, because that's really written in the MIAA handbook. We just got to get people to understand that there are problems with what's going on right now. And again, the strong programs are going to be in any tournament that we have, in any style. But we want everyone to have their experience. And that was really what the statewide tournament plan was about. And we think we can do a better job and have a tournament where you got to have a winning record to get in. And that Thanksgiving games would have huge implications into the seeding. I mean, those Tuesday night games would be on campus. And then the next game would be 5 days later on a Sunday. And so you'd have more rest. And we'd also have a bye at the end of the season. You wouldn't play on the Saturday before Thanksgiving, which is a very hard turnaround for a high school kid. When you play in the semifinal and then you go to your Thanksgiving Day game, and you want it to mean something, but emotionally it doesn't, because if you won, your eye is on the Super Bowl. If you lost, you can still have it like, all right, now I'm out of the tournament, but I got my last game and I only have a few days to get ready. It's really hard to turn around. Again, we don't do it in any other sport. So let's just fix it. There are 3 ways they cannot change. And we're talking about 6% of the schools that play football would be affected with the extra week. 4% of the schools in the MIAA association. These are low numbers. You can either not change the calendar. Those schools miss 2 weeks of the winter season. Or you change the calendar and they miss 1 week of the season like they have for 52 years. Or you start the season at the same time and just push back the first contest date. Right now it's a 10-day preseason in the winter. Make it a 15 or a 17-day preseason. Let those coaches have more time to develop their teams and their players. See, the problem with the way it works is the TMC runs the tournament. The football committee can make recommendations on the format, but it still all has to be approved. The tournament management committee is dictating how things are done. In the old days, football used to make the format, design the tournament. We used to pick the divisions.
When did that change?
It's somewhere like in the 1819, the division started to be made more inside. And then with the statewide tournament plan, it was really dictated that we were going to use the private school factor, where everybody moves up one division based off of the fact that they're private. And we used the vocational factor initially, and then they changed that in the last one. So now we have the CEM, which dictates turnover in a school system, kind of helps the inner city kids that have got schools that have kids coming in and out. We can't control that, but we want to make recommendations. We'd like to see divisions more balanced. That way, if we took 8 teams into a tournament with a max of 40 schools in a division, you're getting the top 20%. And that should guarantee us some good matchups with teams with winning records.
This sounds like a hill you will die on, Coach.
Yeah, I've been working on this since 2010 through the Coaches Association. And when we got our first statewide plan passed, we had to really sell it, because we're the ones who brought the in-season tournament to football. And the idea was, in the previous format, you had to be a league champion. So if you were St. John's Prep and I was Xaverian, if we both went 10-0 into Thanksgiving, one of us was going to the playoffs and the other one wasn't. That was the way the old format worked. They took 4 leagues, the league champions went, played a semifinal and a final. What happened was we had too many 10-1, 9-2 great teams not make tournaments. So we said, all right, we need to add more teams to the tournament. Problem is, initially, we should have gone to 8 from 4. Instead, we're doing what the NCAA is now, I think, is going to be a mistake, talking about bringing as many as 15 or 16 teams into a tournament. We took 167 schools initially in 2012 into the tournament. We had one year, we had an 0-7 team make the tournament. So
What?
It's like 12 teams in a division. A bunch of teams went over, and they got in based off of their opponent's strength. So
There's no other state this happens in.
right, it's the MIAA said to the tournament management committee, put together a proposal where we can eliminate the regions and go statewide with the divisions. We were all in favor of that because there was always problems with matching large schools from Central Mass and Western Mass, Springfield Central, Wachusett, St. John Shrewsbury, matching them into a regional format because they didn't have enough peers. So we had to lower them down into Division 2 or Division 3 so they could play peers. And then they would get to Gillette in Division 3 and play a school that had third the players that they had. So it didn't match up. What we've realized through the surveys, through the experiences that coaches have had and they've come to us with, is that every kid deserves a full regular season. And that really is the focus of narrowing it down to 8 teams and getting this thing done. And I think right now it's about pairing the presentation for everyone to understand the problems that we face, how we can fix them, educate, inform, gather data from everyone, principals, ADs, coaches, evaluate that data and say, all right, do we fix this now or do we stay with the format the way it is? And the history has told us that coaches don't want consolation games. So a lot more value in playing your rival in November or Thanksgiving, knowing that you either are in or you're out of the playoffs, but you're not playing consolation games. You're not being forced to take a bye or traveling on a bus to go to a foreign land where you've never played anybody and you have no tradition with them.
It will happen, like the change will happen, who knows when. It would be for 25 though, right?
Everything's 2-year rotations, so in 25 the divisions will be realigned based off of enrollment and other factors, so that might change. I don't know. That's a TMC thing.
I'm sorry, the TMC actually decides who goes where too, or can decide that?
They do the divisions, they handle the power rating. Yeah, they have a lot of power. One of the things that I brought to the table this year for the 2024 was the higher seed at Gillette typically is put on the Patriots' home side, but the stakes are on the Patriots' home side. So I re-emphasized, and it's now in the format, that higher seed now at Gillette can pick which sideline they'd like to be on. Because some coaches don't want the chains on their side if they're the home team. And some coaches want the fans in front of them, and some coaches want them behind them. If you're the higher seed, you're going to be able to pick that this year. And every year we try to find things that need to be fixed, and I'm out there lobbying on behalf of the association for the 274 schools in the state.
And I don't think he's gonna be quiet anytime soon about it. It doesn't sound like.
The statistics tell us we're getting 13.5% upsets in the first round, and we're jamming in these extra teams, and a lot of them are getting blown out. We had a 15 beat a 2 this year, first time. Had a couple of 14s win, but most of the time the upsets are 8-9, or they're in Division 8, which happens to have 48 teams in it, and it's more competitive because it's a smaller division anyways, and some good teams make the tournament.
We'll talk about lighter stuff. So obviously you guys had a tremendous season. It's been a couple months since the Super Bowl, Coach. What was it like recalling your 23 season?
It was an awesome year, I think, because we had graduated so many players from a really good 22 team, and all these kids got their first experience. They were seniors, kids that had grinded through the program, and every one of those kids that we plugged in, they all hit. You're always hoping you don't have to play sophomores. These kids waited their turn, plugged them in. We had all new skill kids on offense. We had 3 linemen backs, so we had to plug in 2 more. We had 3 seniors fill those spots. We developed a senior tight end, which helped us down the stretch. We had lost good players on defense. Every kid we plugged in hit. And I think as a coach, we were thrilled that they were ready to go and they did their jobs. Played a challenging qualifying schedule with some good programs. We played really well early, a little bit of a late season slide, and it didn't hurt us because of who we had played. We got the 3 seed, and we were familiar with Minichug, which I think was a benefit because we'd played them the year before. And we were familiar with Dartmouth because we've played them, I think, 4 times now since I've been at Milton. And we had those 2 games at home, which helped us. Westfield was a very good team. They were a 10 seed that had upset Billerica. Very good running back. They were a very well-coached team. They had an awesome 2-way lineman. These are all-state caliber kids. Fortunate to kind of jump out on them a little bit early and did a good job holding them out of the end zone at the end of the first half. And then you get to the Super Bowl, and I was really concerned because we lost on Thanksgiving, got some kids banged up in the game, and then we come out and we got to play Walpole, who beat us by 19. McKenzie, I think, in my opinion, is the best quarterback in the state. They had some fantastic receivers. They were playing at a high level. They really outcoached us and outplayed us in the first game, so we tweaked a few things, still made some mistakes early. We had a roughing the punter, which led to a first down, and they jump out 14-0 when we blow our coverage later on in the second drive. We got back in the game. We got a strip sack and a second score, tied the game. And in the second period, we had a nice drive where we converted 2 fourth downs, took the lead, and then Patrick Miller, who's our quarterback, jumps in at DB, which is probably his future position at the next level, and makes a break up on a pass that deflects into Harrison Hinkle's hands, and he houses that for a 2-score lead. And by that point, I thought we really just played really well at the line of scrimmage. Our O-line, D-line did a fantastic job, and our defense really was locked in, and Nathan Huey carried a career high 29 times, and Nate was always a slow starter in his 2 years with us. Slow starter, fast finish. It's a credit to the kids, their commitment to each other and to the program and the work they put in, and we graduate 26 great kids, and now we got to find a lot of new players.
Well, you got one that I want to ask you about because he balled in the Super Bowl. Ronan Salmon.
He's a sophomore. He caught 72 balls for 1,000-something yards. Hopefully his role will expand and contribute some other places as well, but we were fortunate. We only needed them on offense. He's got a nice feel for route running. He's got fantastic ball skills. He and Patrick had good chemistry, and a lot of things really timed up with some of the RPO stuff that we do, and he's an inside receiver for us, so we're lucky he's the only starter we have back. He had a great year, and the other guy back is Harrison Hinkle, who people kind of know about because he has a knack for making big plays, big games, and he's won 2 baseball state championships at Milton for us. Obviously, he had an offensive and a defensive touchdown in the Super Bowl. He's a real good cover guy. He's on Jamal a lot, and pretty much exclusively in that game. Containing him after one explosive play early was a big part of us taking a lead. Tyron Bly is our other corner, who had a fantastic junior year for us. He was on Hughes in that game a lot, and Hughes he's another, if he didn't play next to Jamal, he would get more attention. He's gone, thank God, from Walpole. But Tyron had a really good year for us. We'll need for him to contribute probably on offense this year. One defensive lineman back and one inside linebacker. One of our outside linebackers that played mostly in passing situations for us back as well. So we're going to have like 5 kids with really varsity experience, and we got to rebuild.
And then I want to ask you about the Bay State. Coming into this year, I think it was very competitive. Milton, Needham, Weymouth, Walpole, Braintree. This is a tough division, Coach. Can you talk about just the competition in the Bay State?
It was the best it's been last year. Needham is, obviously they made it to the D1 Final Four, lost a close game to Zavarian, the eventual winner. They've got some great players coming back. They got, I think, Simone at left tackle. They got Williams at outside linebacker / anything, on offense. They got a whole secondary is back, good players. They've got a linebacker, tight end, Schreiber back, who's a pain in the butt. They do a really good job, and we did not, for the first time since I've been in Milton, they really had us on the run. We beat them 10-9. They probably deserved better. They had a great season. Walpole had a great season. Everyone in our league won 7 games this year. Weymouth upset LS. Mike Donovan did a really good job in his first year there, and they went on the road as a 12 seed and beat a 5 in the tournament. So everybody won 7, and it was very competitive. And we're Super Bowl champs, but we did win the Bay State Harrogate. So
that's nuts.
It is nuts, and I think it was good for our league, and I think this year Needham will be the class of the league, and we'll all be chasing that with what they have coming back and how well they played last year.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your time, Coach. This was awesome.
Shout out recruiting board, baby.